I'll tell you what, it's more than just the handle for Deuce McBride right now. He physically looks and moves like a different dude. And if that carries over to the regular season, it's a potential game changer for the Knicks bench.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the Knicks for nearly a decade, and I'm the Saturday co-host of the Locked On Knicks podcast, or the Locked On NBA podcast. So be sure to check that out if you're watching this as I put it out on a Saturday. But before we get into all that, I want to remind you that this is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team at least 5 days a week. So be sure to join now 9,000 other Knicks fans. That's a good number. And subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. On today's show, as promised, though a little later than I was hoping to get it out, I wanted to put the finishing touches on another preseason win for the New York Knicks, 100-95. Over the Minnesota Timberwolves, just because when me and XJ recorded the other day, we left a little meat on the bone. To that point, I'm going to open this episode with about a 6-minute segment of XJ and I talking about Deuce McBride. As you guys know him, I couldn't leave him out of that conversation. And then we're going to touch on a whole bunch of other stuff, including Jordan Clarkson showing some real on-the-ball juice, Jalen Brunson's passing, impressive defensive flashes from the Knicks trio of centers, and a whole bunch more, including Pacome Dadiet. We'll get into it in just a sec right here on Locked On Knicks. I just wanted to shout out one play from Deuce McBride in this game. We talked about the gap scheme, right, and how it was going to favor OG and favor Mikal and their defensive playmaking. Deuce, to me, like, this isn't something that, I don't know why it didn't really click into this game. Beyond just the handle, he looks like his shoulders got broader, and he looks like just more explosive, and like there's just a little bit more in the tank on the defensive end of the floor, because the way he just like shot the gap on Julius Randle, right, had that top of the key ISO on Jalen Brunson, and you could tell Julius was like licking his lips, taking his time, saying, yeah, this is my moment, screw you, superstar. And Deuce just ruined it for him, shooting in, knocking the ball free before he could get to work. JB, I don't love this from your MVP candidate in a preseason game, but it's who he is, and you it's on the other side, you love him for it. Dives on a loose ball, flips it up to Mikal, one dribble, hits the charging Yabu for his stuff. Just an awesome play. Deuce had another one where he darted into strip Naz Reid when he was driving in on a mismatch. Like, he almost looks like a little bit like Davion Mitchell athletically, which is like a high bar, and I don't think Deuce is quite that tier of one-on-one defender, but it like another step forward for him would be unlocking just a little bit more defensive playmaking. If I'm remembering correctly, his steal rate actually went a little bit down last season. So if he could get like back to his peak on that end of the floor, it just makes the Knicks that much more deadly. And it also just forces to promote our agenda, Mike Brown, to put him on the floor a little bit more often.
Oh, yeah. And those are all great points. Sidebar, I do want to say the classic Julius turnover where he sees
Clyde was roasting him for it. Clyde was like, that was always his problem in New York.
I think that's the best way to guard Julius, is just to put a guy defending him who he thinks he can just like destroy. And then he forgets about everything else on the court. But yeah, on the Deuce McBride point, yeah, you made so many great points, and he does absolutely look different. I think this is a guy who just recognized how much he kind of left on the table last season and what he, like, the impact that he could have had. And it seems like he's not going to let that slip away now, knowing that he has a new opportunity with a new coach to make a new first impression, and he is making the most out of it. That I believe in a very few amount of possessions, it might have been like 7 or something. I believe Deuce with the starters was the Knicks best lineup in this game, and Deuce has just been an incredible force on both ends of the court very consistently. And we know he's going to hit shots, but when he's aggressive, when he's confident, when he has the handle, when he has the strength, when he's able to guard multiple positions, when he's able to rotate, and he's able to kind of do all these things and has no weaknesses, Again, when we're talking about raising the ceiling, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about guys being maxed out to what their capabilities are within their roles. And Deuce looks like that right now. So I love the Davion Mitchell, maybe not comparison, but just like flag, because I see a little bit of that of what you're talking about. And just knowing what Deuce did in college and the kind of defender he can be and what we've seen at times, I think he can be that. And so I don't see any reason for him to have a ceiling on either end, especially in the role that we know he's going to have. And I do think that we're going to see that lineup be the Knicks' best lineup. I've been saying that obviously for a couple of years now, and I think it'll be true. I don't think it'll start, but I do think it'll be the Knicks' best lineup. And I think that's going to be the lineup that you put on when you say, we want to run a team off the court. And I think it's going to happen. And Deuce being this good, if he's going to be this good, is going to be a big reason for that happening.
I just checked on Pivot Fade. They were a +5 in only 3 minutes. Play them, Mike Brown. Play them. All right, guys, we're going to transition over. That is it for the section that XJ and I recorded together. We felt like it was a little bit too long for one pod, so we just wanted to chop that off. It was also very late at night, so I was going to ask him to go through the rest of the Knicks roster, but I'm a sicko, so I'll pick it up right now on a Saturday morning for me here on the West Coast. And we're going to start off talking Jordan Clarkson. I thought he was the next kind of most interesting piece in this game. 10 points, 3 assists in just 18 minutes, 4 of 11 from the field, but that's a drop deceptive because he was 4 of 5 from 2-point range, went 0 for 6 from 3, 2 for 2 from the foul line. I thought this was pretty cleanly his best performance. And it shows you what some of the highs are going to look like for Jordan Clarkson, right? His best games will probably involve more like a 3 for 6 from 3. And then this would have been a spectacular performance, right? That would have been a 19-point performance in just 18 minutes. Even if he goes 2 for 6 for 3, that's a 16-point performance in 18 minutes, right? And we saw the first 2 games where I felt like he was mostly just kind of chucking bad shots, was not creating a lot for others. He seemed locked in defensively, but obviously he's never, especially at his current age, going to contribute a ton on that end of the floor. So I was just sort of waiting. I was like, all right, sell me on the vision from the Knicks front office. And I know the vision that I bought in my head and I sold you guys this summer that like, hey, yes, he's going to take some bad shots. Yes, he's not going to be very good defensively, but all that stuff was already pretty much true of Campaign, even though he had a surprisingly good defensive season last year. But you're going to get a little bit more upside as a scorer. And I thought most importantly, more upside as a shot creator, something the Knicks desperately need, not only on their bench, but just on this roster. They needed a little bit more off the dribble juice. And I thought Clarkson in the Knicks' first game against legitimate defensive competition showed you what he could bring in a high leverage basketball game. And that is an ability with bench lineups, right, that are not particularly heavy on scoring. Like I'll take you through like some of the units we saw. We saw Clarkson, Deuce, Shamet, OG, Mitch. We saw that same lineup with Cat in there for Mitch. We saw Brunson, Deuce, Clarkson, OG, Cat, Brunson, Deuce, Clarkson, OG, Mitch. Some of those lineups, essentially the non-Brunson ones, like you are involved, you are relying on Jordan Clarkson to pretty much be your primary shot creator. And sometimes that's going to get you burned. Like he took a quick trigger contested transition 3 in this game. And in my mind, I'm just saying, all right, Jordan, like he's just not a good enough shooter to justify that shot. Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, even Deuce McBride takes that type of shot. You're saying, all right, that's fine. He misses it. We'll live with it. Like shooters shoot. Jordan Clarkson, not a shooter like that. What I like a lot more is him coming off a Mitch screen and doing what Mikal Bridges often does and just making an early proactive read saying, hey, OG's been cooking from the corners early in the preseason. I'm going to rip this pass to the right corner. My boy OG, going to drain a 3. He did exactly that. And then you started to see the ISO stuff where he got to a spot, a little midi over Rob Dillingham, couple of passes. He had another drive where he threw a couple of pass fakes into a little fadeaway, right? And you start to see the manipulation. You start to see just the patience for him on the ball, right? He doesn't look rushed. And that's something that Deuce McBride, even into his mid-20s, is still developing and still getting comfortable with. We've had a decade plus of Jordan Clarkson as a legitimate NBA scorer of the basketball, right? None of this is old hat for him. Unlike Malcolm Brogdon, possibly, like I think he's still pretty close to his peak levels of juice and quickness on the offensive end of the floor. He can get to a spot, but then once he gets there, he's not rushed. He's 6'4", 6'5". He can manipulate and he can get off a good shot. In fact, he'd like another one, right? Nice drive, drop off to Yabusele for a layup after waiting and baiting the big. Another one where he put his defender, I can't remember who's guarding him, but he put him in, shout out for all the old heads who listened to this pod back in like 2020, 2021. He put him in Emmanuel quickly booty jail, right? Got him on his back, didn't give up the advantage, like slow step to the rim, keeping his defender locked in jail, laying it home. Doubled at one point in the corner. And again, instead of forcing a tough play, slips it to Malcolm Brogdon, who then makes the extra Ariel Hukporti for a big dunk, right? That is the advantage creation. That is the gravity that is going to buoy some bench units for the Knicks. And yes, on some nights, it is not going to look particularly good for him. It's not going to click particularly well. But on the nights it works, on the nights it clicks, it is going to be really, really exciting for the New York Knicks. And I cannot wait to see more of it. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss right under customers. You can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. I built parlays, I've tried player props, and even follow the live lines during games. So why am I so invested in FanDuel? Well, my NFL teams kind of suck, right? If you're a Giants fan, if you're a Jets fan, it has not been good for a while. I can't say that with as much conviction today as I have been the last few weeks, because Jackson Dart and the Giants just beat the Eagles. So I'll throw the ire crosstown at the New York Jets. Like, you are miserable if you are a Jets fan right now. Justin Fields, not him. Garrett Wilson, really good, but not enough on his own. Maybe I know they're getting some help back on defense, so maybe they'll pick it up. But in the meantime, if you want to juice your Sundays, or if your fantasy football team like mine is also bad, FanDuel can help just add a little bit more excitement. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience just that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. But I also want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, well, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Guys, this is what I love about Monarch Money. It helps you maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, easily review finances with your partner and or financial advisor, and keep a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. That is such a big thing to me. I get really anxious around looking at and planning my finances. The idea of having it organized in all in one place just makes it so much more approachable. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKDOWNNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with our code LOCKDOWNNBA. All right, moving on from Jordan Clarkson. I wanted to quickly, I know we talked Jalen Brunson a little bit in part one in the context of some of the 5-out lineups and the unique way Minnesota was defending him. If you missed that, certainly go check out part one. It's a banger with XJ. But I wanted to get a little bit more into Brunson's night, because I thought there was some fascinating stuff there and some fascinating counters to, as we highlighted, like one, Anthony Edwards playing on-ball defense on him as well or better than anyone I've seen in the NBA, and also having Rudy Gobert and just like a cadre of Timberwolves ready to crash to the basket pretty much any time he drove. So what were the solutions to that? One, something we've seen all preseason, which is to get him off ball threes. But this is interesting, right? And this is where I was talking about, all right, he can do this against the Delaware Bluecoats. Is that the Sixers G League team name? I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is the Sixers did not have their full roster. Can he do it against a Western Conference powerhouse that's been in the conference finals each of the last 2 years, that has some personal beef against the New York Knicks and was going to play incredibly hard in a preseason game? Can he still get off those same shots? And the answer was sort of mixed, right? So one possession where he gets 2 catch and shoot threes, but they weren't the easy ones he was getting like against the Sixers. One was created by a Mikal probe, but that one was like fairly well contested. It was not an open look. And then the other one from a sideline out of bounds play that I thought was fun. Brunson inbounds it to Mitch, and then he screens away to Cat. Cat then flips the screen, turns it into a screen for Brunson. Brunson kind of curls around. It's almost like a one-man elevator screen action. He pops up, left wing, not the right wing, and takes like a deep three with I think it might have been Devo, just like flying out on him for a good contest. So that's something to watch, right? Because the Knicks are going to run these off-ball actions, and it's important to note the Knicks are going to get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner in these off-ball actions as the season rolls along, right? Like it's not going to be this poor the entire season. I don't even want to say poor, but it is just going. The fact of the matter is it is going to continue to get better as we go throughout the season, right? Because it's just getting smoother. Everyone's getting more comfortable. These are actions, particularly with Brunson screening and then popping around someone else's screening. The Knicks just didn't run a lot of last year. So inevitably, it should improve. But that is something I'm watching against really good defenses. I mentioned the relocation sequence. I wanted to talk about it passing through because I've seen Brunson occasionally throw this pass over the last couple of years, but I'm curious to see if it becomes a bigger part of his game as the Knicks continue to emphasize spacing a little bit more. And that is like the Jokic style. And I like no look whip pass to the corner. And Jokic is better than anyone I've ever seen in NBA history pull this off. LeBron historically also really, really good at it. But the pass where you're looking away, and then you just like yeet it like either parallel to the baseline or across the floor from the top of the key. And that was Brunson, right? He was staring at Mitch coming up to set his screen. And this is how you leverage your gravity, right? Whole defense is cued in. They see you staring at Mitch. Everyone is like fiending, ready to help. And this is the downside of the type of defense Minnesota was playing. If you're going to pay that much attention to Jalen Brunson, a good pass with your athleticism, you can recover to. A great pass is going to create an open three. And this is a great pass by Brunson, right? All of a sudden, just redirects the Cat in the corner for a corner three. Cat took, I don't know what the final number was, but it was something like only 20 corner threes last year. And even that, I'll check out the number for a future episode. Even that might be a little bit high for Karl-Anthony Towns. So just any type of action that gives Karl-Anthony Towns, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, a wide open three, that is a really good one. That is a really encouraging one for the New York Knicks. All right. And then I want to get into the two-man game between him and Cat, right? Because we didn't see a lot of it in the first two games in Dubai, but it is something that the Knicks are going to try to get to a ton, I think, with now that they are playing lineups with adequate spacing. And in the configurations, maybe they'll even do it when Mitch is on the floor, but obviously it is much easier to do when Cat is playing as a 5 than when Cat is playing on the 4. So Mitch off the floor, third quarter, DHO from Cat to Brunson, then Cat flips the screen, right? Even that, it's just adding a little bit of another layer versus last year where I don't want to say Tom Thibodeau never ran that because I honestly don't remember, but it was more commonly just a standard pick and roll between the two. Why not add a little bit of a deception? Add 2 more steps to the defender, right? Get around the DHO, then get around the flip screen. Brunson gets to the elbow, head and shoulder fake to bait the big, slips it to Cat rolling to the rim. Cat probably had to take one more dribble than he did, kind of awkwardly got caught between a layup and a dunk. But it was a good action, and they were running it with Yabu at the wing in a 5-out configuration. And that's where you can get to that. That's the benefit of having Yabu, who is a credible threat to shoot the ball. And then Brunson off ball again, right? Cuts off a Cat post up, draws a crowd, immediately, instead of forcing a shot, sprays it to Shaman in the corner. Shaman missed the 3, but that is generating a good look just off your off-ball movement in a game where you're not having a ton of success on the ball. And I also, just one final caveat on this on-ball struggles for Jalen Brunson, as I mentioned, like, yes, it's a little bit concerning to see him struggle against a great defense, only because I haven't totally seen defenses lean into that just all-out claps on Brunson very often. You've seen it in some games where his teammates are injured, but 2 reasons to think it's not a super big deal. One, Mike Brown said after the game, literally, he was like, I've not really set him loose yet. I'm just kind of encouraging him to run our offense right now. And as the regular season goes along, I'll encourage to give him opportunities to just be himself and cook in the mid-range, cook in ISO. So he's playing a style that is not really the Jalen Brunson we've seen over the last couple of years. And then the other factor there is he like pretty consistently as a Knick, maybe not his first season, but each of the last 2 seasons gotten off to very slow starts, like bad first 5 or 6 games, and then all of a sudden he'll rip off like 8 straight 30-point games. So we will see more of that. He had another really nice pass off a live dribble, nasty hook pass to Gershon Yabusele in the corner. So that was super exciting. But when we come back on Locked On Knicks, I want to talk about the 3 bigs, Cat, Mitch, Ariel Hukporti, flashes from all of them on the defensive side of the ball, and a quick shout out to Pacome Dadiet and Tyler Kolek in semi-garbage time, though. I guess it was still competitive in terms of the score. So we'll talk about all that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. All right, what up, guys? We are back wrapping this one up here on the Locked On Knicks podcast. My name is Gavin Schall. Be sure to also tune into Locked On NBA tonight, where I'll be breaking down all the games from across the league. And of course, we'll have you back Sunday and probably Monday too, with even more content. So stay locked in. We're going a bunch of episodes to start this week. But let's talk a little bit about the bigs, right? Because we covered Mikal in part 1, we covered OG in part 1, we covered Deuce at the start of this episode. But I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Karl-Anthony Towns' game, because there are some good and bad defensively. Like it is going to be interesting to see where they try to hide him against the team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, because I think like OG is probably in the starting lineup the optimal matchup for Julius Randle. But then you have to hide Mitch on someone like Jaden McDaniels, which obviously is not really ideal. Or excuse me, sorry, you put Mitch on Rudy and you put Cat on someone like Jaden McDaniels, which is not ideal, because Jaden McDaniels has legitimate on the ball juice at this point. And they kind of tried to take Cat off Julius right away. I think they ended up putting him back on that matchup at different times of this game, but literally the first play of the game, Julius like faked Cat out of his shoes on a pump and go. He ended up blowing the layup, but still that was tough. And then you started to see some of the on-ball stuff from Cat. Like I mentioned, him catching for the corner 3. He chucked a pass to a wide open Jalen Brunson in the corner into the crowd, but that was an example of just the Knicks pace, because that was them pushing in semi-transition, generating what should have been a wide open look. And hopefully Cat, as the season goes along, gets more and more comfortable making that type of pass. He had a pretty dirty jelly lay on Joan Behringer. I can't remember. That guy's going to be really good, by the way. It was just a sick finish by Cat over a really good contest. And then more so, I told you about a little bit about the 2-man game stuff with Brunson. He had another little 2-man game moment with OG where OG hit him in the high post, and then OG ran off it. Cat flipped it to him almost like a blind pig action. OG sprinted to the rim, missed a little flip. I think Rudy got away with a foul on it. I like seeing those quick hitters when Cat gets it in the post, right? Because again, the defense, Cat gets a touch there, defense tenses up, starts to be like, oh, we got to get to Cat, and then Cat just immediately flips it out. OG with momentum going towards the rim. And I think you're going to see teams, especially early season, struggle with this stuff against the Knicks, because they're just not used to the Knicks making quick decisions and getting rid of the ball that fast. But defensively for Cat, just some more good moments. He's just shown some great hands over the course of this preseason. And that's part of why XJ told you there are stats backing up the idea that he's a very good help defender. He had a play where he stood up Randle, got some nice help from Deuce. It ultimately forced Randle just chuck it out of bounds. That was some really good defense. And then so weird to be rooting for Cat, by the way, in the Cat Julius Randle battle for so many years. We were on the other side of that rivalry. It's just a strange feeling. And then another one where he stepped up and got a contest to force Ant to throw it away. And then literally the next play, Rudy Gobert's coming down the court with the ball, and he strips him in transition to go get a layup on the other end. Just some nice defensive playmaking from Cat. Mitch, second straight game, had a quiet one. Again, I still haven't seen any notes if he was shaken up or if Mike Brown just decided to be really conservative, sitting him the whole second half. Obviously, we will know by Monday if there's anything there in terms of an injury issue. But again, he showed great hands, like stripping the ball off Ant's leg from behind. There are just not a lot of bigs in the NBA that can do that. Stripped Gobert off of a Cat, like saving a loose ball. Again, great hands. And then 2 plays in a row where he pinned Rob Dillingham against the backboard. One was a goaltend. Second one was a clean block. Mitch looking in really good shape, showing some good flashes. And then Ariel Hukporti, I mentioned that dunk he had. That was just awesome off the swing from Clarkson to Brogdon to him. Brogdon had a nice rub cut. I think it was Brogdon. I want to say it was Brogdon off of Ariel Hukporti, who is just so good. I mean, very similar to Isaiah Hartenstein. Cat can throw this pass too, so it's nice to have two bigs, one former big, R.I.P. iHeart, that can throw that pass, because that is going to be something I think, especially with bench units, Mike Brown will really lean into, right? Just like little rub cut, like go right off the big with the ball. He throws it over the top too. Ideally, you get a layup. If not, you get fouled. He also had a monster block defensively on Johnny Juzang, led to a Garrison Matthews run out and 3 that helped put the game away in overtime, made it 98-90. Last guy I really wanted to shout out in any depth was Pacome Dadiet, who I thought flashed some pretty good minutes again for the New York Knicks. 15 minutes, 5 points, 2 of 4, 1 of 3, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. But it was less so the stats and more so how it looked. Just like mature decision making from him. And again, I'll caveat this with, like, Minnesota had their deep bench in. Obviously, he's looked more sped up against starting units, playing with the starters. He's obviously more comfortable playing with Huckporty, playing with Kolek guys. He's just, between the G League and 2 years of Summer League and I'm sure a million practices, he's just put a ton of time in with those guys. But had a really nice driving kick sling to Deuce for a 3, had a great skip pass to Deuce for another 3, then drained a wing 3 of his own where he caught it. He was open, took his time, didn't rush it. Shot looked really good. We always reference it. Chris talked about it, but that Fred Katz tweet indicating that the Knicks' internal stats suggest that Pacome is a legitimate shooter, even if the stats at the NBA level and Summer League haven't always reflected that yet. Had another really nice one where he walled off Terrence Shannon for a turnover. That completed a 13-0 Knicks run, I think from the third to the fourth quarter, to go up 78-74 after they pushed and scored off that. And then, like, he had that rebound in Abu Dhabi where he just rose up over everyone, caught it with one hand, clapped it with 2, and did the same thing off an inbound play from Huckporty where he ran off a screen and Huckporty just threw him a jump ball. And he looked like Calvin Johnson, right? Just going up, snagging it with one hand, pounding it in with 2, pump fake, lay it in. I would not trade Pacome Daddier. There's just the flashes of the size, the athleticism, the shot making, the decision making. I think there's something there. I think he just turned 20 years old. I'd give the guy a chance. I would unfortunately move on from my guy, Tyler Kolek, who showed some good patience, made a couple nice shots in this one. Garrison Matthews continues to shoot the ball well. Landry Shamet, only 1 for 4 from 3. The 1-3 was a really nice one. I'm curious to see when the Knicks make a trade, what the final roster looks like. Be assured when that happens, we will have coverage for you here on Locked On Knicks. But until then, we'll talk to you tomorrow, probably with an episode covering the Atlanta Hawks with Locked On Hawks host Brad Rowland. Until then, be good. Enjoy your weekend. We'll hit you soon on Locked On Knicks.